PETA, podcast every day in April, where during the month of April you'll hear about different topics and different stories and discussions that I have on my mind and on my heart to discuss and address for this month. It may be sports related, it may be stuff related. You may even hear some guests on the show that you may haven't even seen or heard from me addressing on the show. But this is PETA, and this is Podcast Every Day in April. Hope you enjoy. What is going on, y'all? Thought I'd do something a little different. Normally, I would never record in this regard, but when you're on the go, you got to make things happen. This is going to be the first and probably the last. Well, actually, I got to do two episodes. So, this is going to be called a bit of a car cast. So, normally, I'm always in like a hotel, not a hotel, but in a setting where I can kind of just chill, talk to y'all, give you a little bit of information, and call it a day. Well, the location that I had wasn't 100% for what I was trying to do. So I decided to go ahead and switch it up a little bit by recording kind of on the go. So today's episode is we're doing episode 176 called Gaslighting. A lot of people have heard this term or know about it being a thing. I'm going to kind of give what I have learned. This was a conversation that triggered with me a couple of months ago, and I'm gonna read some of these, and they may repeat themselves. So just kind of bear with me while I'm going through a couple of signs of gaslighting. Uh, so these are a few signs related to gaslighting. You're frequently second guessing yourself. You wonder if you're too sensitive. You don't trust your own judgment and decisions. You find yourself constantly apologizing. You can't figure out why you're so unhappy. You always make excuses for your partner's behavior. You feel like you can't do anything right. You think you just aren't good enough. You feel like you were once a happier, more confident person. You hold things back from friends and family. You think you deserve to be alone. You've lost confidence. You struggle making decisions. You're easily confused. So I have, as a couple of you that may follow me on Instagram on the past podcast, I did kind of give a couple of teasers related to this conversation. And most of what I've just read were a couple of those examples. So I'm going to be very transparent with you all in regards to this because I think it's relevant to know and learn. I once was personally a victim or a individual who was part of gaslighting. There are various signs that you follow, and these are a couple of those signs that I just read. One of them is confidence, and I'll go into it, and I'm going to just fly with this show because I really want people to really. I normally am always like, yeah, I want y'all to tune in and definitely check out the show. This one, I really am going to hit you with a lot of knowledge and a lot of information as far as personal experience and encounters related to this. There was a point when I worked or when I did things in my life and I didn't have the most strong confidence or point of view about something. When you, as a person, feel or seem weak about something, it's an opportunity to prey on it, attack, however you want to hit it or however you want to look at it. Um, when we second guess ourselves on what we do or don't know, you've already lost the battle that immediate moment. I know from my personal perspective and experience, you naturally become a gaslighter and you don't know it only because it's not like there's something that you would sit. It's not like something you would just sit and acknowledge as an everyday trait or task, and that's what makes it more of a not. It's visual, but it's not as visual as the eye makes it seem. If that makes sense. Um, when you feel like as far as feeling like you can't do anything right, you can do things to the best of its ability, but once you do it and you don't feel that it's up to your par, your standards, you're beginning to kind of blend into that obvious trait which I just mentioned as far as second guessing yourself because you don't feel like you feel like you've done it, but you don't feel like You're not stern at how you look at it. I have friends and I have family and I have people who I know who they can approach something and it's their driver and they are leaders and they can handle it with no problem. And I got the utmost respect for them. At times with me, I've had those phases, but then I've become that person, not really to be considered as the passive aggressive, but it's more so I'm not going to sit here and make this fight to be something that may or may not go exceptionally well. Um, being happy is something you personally have to internalize. Expressing it to other people, venting about it, talking about how you feel, talking about where you stand on things, that's all great and that's all well and good. And I have no knock with any of that whatsoever. But if you personally don't feel happy with you, others can give you all the inspiration and all the positivity, but you've gotta want it for you. Some like one of the first things I think of, and this is just kind of an observation because I'm in this midst. My weight. I'm not skinny, but I'm not. I mean, I'm not skinny, obviously. But as far as weight goes, I've gained weight, but I'm also not like humongously obese where I can't function and live my life normal. The tough part is when I'm trying to go through certain parts of my life or do different things. Like the number one option or the first thing I always think about is playing basketball. There was one point in basketball I could outrun anybody at any point. I still have the running part down, but as far as the conditioning and keeping up with certain games, I will burn out so fast. And part of it is because of my personal weight. And I've been conscious about it at times where I've like fought myself and feeling like I should be this size or I should be this or I should be at this state. But the reality is if that's not where you're supposed to be at that point, you either work on it to try to improve. If you feel like you're not supposed to be at that stage at that point in your life, you either make changes toward it or you accept it and work towards being a better you. Being confident and being perfect in your mind, and I know I'm throwing the perfect word wildly, but being perfect is a very tall order. But being comfortably proud of who you are and true in your own skin and true to who you are is something that not everyone has. Um, I did this podcast and I'm doing this podcast to tell you all from personal experience. I was the victim and I was guilty of apologizing about everything. And a lot of times I was apologizing for something that I didn't even do wrong. And you shouldn't have to do that. If you feel like what you did was what you did and you stand behind it, stand behind it. Be that that's what the being willing to own up to who and what you've done or what you are planning to do is important. Because as much as you may think making everyone else happy or putting a smile on everyone else's face is gonna solve everything, most of the time it doesn't. And we as people need to really see and really understand it. Um, so I put and I actually, you know, I got like a few brief notes that I've put. Like I wrote down all of the symptoms of gaslighting, a few that the ones that I've read to you, and then the other ones that were on the other slide. But what causes, as far as like what causes you to hit this point, stress, frustration, um, being overwhelmed. As I always love to call it, the infamous burnout. The burnout, whether people realize it, burning out is a thing. You can hit that burnout point, and by hitting the burnout, it can cause you to second guess and not be truly confident and comfortable with who you are and what you're doing. And it helps a lot of times, whether we realize it or not, to have someone to confide in, to have someone as a venting resource. Your venting resource, you have to also remember they're gonna give you your venting resource may be very transparent in telling you about yourself, and you might not like what they say, but you can't take it personal. And I'm getting that schooling lately of learning not to take everything that's being said personal and running with it and rolling with what life has or has not offered along the way. Um, as far as breaking that pattern, is just being open to you and acknowledging who you are and where you stand and where you're trying to go. Not everyone does that very often, and a lot of times it exposes itself. Like it becomes a very, I mean, I don't want to use that term to say it as such, but it's literally almost like it's indecent exposure. And you become exposed on something that you didn't expect to be exposed and not expect to present itself, but yet it does. And when you fight your, I've been guilty of using the term as far as people being on a vibe or being in an energy and having a headspace. You have to find your energy. You have to find your vibe. You have to find that way of gaining and maintaining sanity. In a couple of hours, my sanity is coming. I'm getting back to my gaming again. As you all have learned and have been listening, my podcast, whether people realize it or not, me getting on a mic and talking to y'all, I feel like I'm talking to myself sometimes, is my way of getting my energy balanced. I was presented this by my pastor, and I'm sharing this with you all as a message. As people, you have to truly know and find your balance. When you lose your balance, you become off. And once you are off, gaslighting can generate through that. So those are like a few things that I'm here to kind of give you all. And I know it's not that I'm really dangling the story and I'm like, all right, that's all I got. Because it's mainly, these are the symptoms and the things that you may see or notice that could lead to you become or being a victim or being a person who is gaslighting. And you just have to find those small things that make you satisfied and make you pleased. If it's writing, write. A lot of people get mad with me because I always tell them, if you really are in a challenging place with something, get a journal. Write your thoughts out. You don't have to talk to people about what's going on all the time. But at the same token, it never hurts to get help. I have another friend who she does counseling, and she's a therapist. Like, she works with people as far as like trying to get them, to acknowledge whatever their issue is. And if you're following my blog, I have a blog that's going to really bring you all into who Brian was, who Brian has always been, and what Brian is now, and where Brian will be. Like, kind of just leading to an overview of my life. So I'm just here to tell you, like, get through whatever it is, but don't try to do it at all alone. If you got to send somebody a message on Facebook, if you got to send somebody a Skype conversation, if you need to text somebody, hell, if you need to call them, like, make that conversation initiated, because if you don't do it now, literally it could be too late. And we've had, there are people who have passed due to anxiety, depression, suicide, things of that nature, because they just feel like there was no other reason to live, or there was nothing else worth living for. But sometimes we may or may not realize it. Like, we have a purpose and we have a reason to be alive. We just need to know it and understand it for ourselves, and really realize that other people are helping us kind of get through whatever it is. And when you're not here, it's going to be even stronger, because then others have to really think about who and where you were as a person. So I'm gonna wrap up on that one, because like I said, this story, I can sit here and do this for like hours, but I want to give you all just kind of a brief touching of understanding, like, you may have these symptoms of gaslighting and not know it. So if you do, bring it to your attention, acknowledge it, find ways to internally fix it. Don't expect others to be there to quote unquote fix everything, but also, if you need that person to confide in, bring it to their attention. If you're on my Instagram, I have my business card on my page. Y'all can call me. You can text me. I don't mind. I think it's something that we need, that outsource, and we need that person to kind of come to and say, hey, I got something I need to talk about. And as I've used the term loosely, let them get their shit off. If people say they need, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna wrap it up, because I know I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up, but I really want to wrap it up with this so you can understand. If a person says they need to talk, let them get their shit off. Let them talk. Let them get everything out, because you don't want them to like leave something on the table that they really may need to address and deal with externally, without before it's, with it being initially an internal thing. So that's part one. And the flip side of it is, if a person says they need space, give them space. Because the way that relationships and friendships and connections grow is time and space. Whether it's a day apart, a month apart, weeks apart. Sometimes you need that space to personally internalize whatever it is you're working on or trying to deal with. And then it kind of puts you in the next place of where and what you're trying to do moving forward. So that's what I'm leaving with y'all for this podcast. Gonna wrap it up, flow with it, get it all set up and pretty and nice and tidy. And then I got the next one. I'm gonna throw y'all a back-to-back curveball because just life being what it is. So, as always, the Pat signing out. Y'all be good, stay positive, be blessed.
The one point of the show I don't like to reach, but every show must have an ending. So you have made it to the end of yet another episode of the podcast Every Day in April. Continue to tune in. These will be going on from April the 1st until April the 30th. And I will guarantee you that there will be plenty of content and more than enough information to share and address during this show. Thanks for tuning in.